Now, what is Sukkot about? Do we pray for a good harvest? Look, we wish the best for Israel. We hope they don't have a drought. They hope everything's fine. But in Glen Cove, we don't pray. Now, what do we do for Sukkot? We celebrate
the harvest.
The harvest. We think about our houses. We come from humble beginnings. We've changed it over the years. That's the beauty of Judaism. We're always changing things. So that's Sukkot. Passover, of course, as we talked about last time, has many, many meanings. What? Let's go over. You're going to be so educated on these holidays. So, what are the themes of Passover? The number of them.
Freedom.
Freedom. Okay. What?
The plagues.
The plagues. We want to remember what happened. By the way, the story of Passover is that there's a system of theology that the Egyptians said, we have all of these gods. We have the god of the sea, the god of the agriculture, the god of the weather, the god of the... And we said, we don't need 10 gods. We got one. And you know what? You want some proof? 10 plagues, right? We're going to knock out each one of these gods, including you, Mr. Pharaoh, and Pharaoh Jr., right? Pharaoh Jr. was the plague of the firstborn. We're going to take out what do they call it in England? The Prince of Wales, right? We're going to take out the next guy. So the next kids. And also it's about freedom. And now what do we make it about? Taking care of the chumetz inside us. You know, we change these things constantly. That's how we stay relevant. Now, this is the what do we think about? We think about sukkahs here. What do we think about for Passover? What are the images? Images, quick. Matzah, right.
Eggs.
What?
Boiled eggs.
Boiled eggs.
Seder plate.
Seder plate, right. Okay, let's go to Shavuot. What are the symbols of Shavuot? Everybody.
Hair.
Well, there's often like graduations from Hebrew school or
It's a blooming. I always think of Shavuot as a blooming.
confirmations.
I always say Shavuot needs a public relations agency because it doesn't really, it's a time of graduation, it's around Memorial Day, you say Yisker the second day.
I don't know what it is.
That's why we do it. So, here's what happens on Shavuot. Now, by the way, lately, Chabad, who are the experts in this, have actually... there's a thing that says, and I will give you this Torah so that when you enter the land of milk and honey. So or the Torah tastes like milk and honey. So it's traditional around Shavuot for the kids to have like a sundae bar, like an ice cream bar. We have blintzes. Froma makes blintzes. That's why you eat blintzes. Milk. Now, it's a little bit of a public relations thing that we try to eat a lot of things with milk in it to remind us of the land of milk and honey. But really...
That's really stretching.
It's really stretching. Chabad says, we're having an ice cream sundae bar. So, what's the matter? You don't like ice cream? So the Chabad is very, very good at bringing people in. And the kids all have an ice cream bar. And... I remember once the rabbi in Edmonton, where I come from, says, "Are you coming for Shavuot? We're having an ice cream bar." I said, "No, I don't think so." He says, "What? You don't like ice cream?"
Yeah.
Like they're very good. They're very good at bringing you in. So here's what I want to do. I want to go back to Shavuot for a second because it's turned into the festival of milk. We eat milk and cheese and all that kind of other stuff. But what's the real reason?
The giving of the Torah.
The giving of the Torah. Okay. So. What happens is that at the end of your second Seder, and some of you maybe didn't get to it, but we have the counting of the Omer, right? And my wife loves to do this. We now will begin the counting of the Omer. My wife gets up and goes, 1. So she loves doing that 1. The second night of Passover, we say 1, and the next night we say 2, and the next night, and so every Friday night, you notice if you come to services here, in the evening, was it Friday night? It was 14, right? And what we're doing is we're marching our way here to Mount Sinai. It took 49 days from the departure from Egypt to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. What do we notice about 49?
7 weeks.
7 weeks. Give me some other 7. 7, by the way, 7, any time that you see 7 in Judaism, there's a couple key numbers here. 7. Give me some other 7s. 7 days of the week, right? Technically 7 days of Passover. We add an extra one in the outside of Israel just to make sure that we got the 7 right, in case you got your time zones wrong. Seriously, in case you get your time zones wrong, we add an wonderful extra day of matzah. That's why many of you received from relatives or friends in Israel on the 8th day of Passover, when you're not supposed to do anything. There's my Rabbi Irwin, sending me, how was your Passover? I couldn't reply to him. He was finished because he was in Israel, but I wasn't, so I couldn't read or reply. 7 days of Passover. 7 days the creation of the world. After 7 years, what are you supposed to do? Anybody know this in the Torah?
You're supposed to
forgive debt. By the way, by the way, God forbid if somebody goes into bankruptcy. I know this is the way it is. Your credit report, after how many years do you lose a bad rating? God forbid it shouldn't happen. 7 years. If you have a slave,
you're supposed to free them
in 7 years.
7 years of feast and famine. Where's that come from? From Joseph in Egypt, right? Said, first we're going to have 7 great years of harvest and 7 years of tsuris. Let's gather up our grain. 7, it's more than a coincidence. The storytellers in the Torah always use 7 as a sign of completion, of the end of a cycle. So what do we get when we have 7 times 7? We have 49. And we are marching on our way to Mount Sinai. Now, very interesting thing, and I'm just going to give this to, you have this over here. And up to this point, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, and Moses, and all these other, God has a relationship with the Jewish people. It's a relationship. We're dating. Right? God says to Abraham, do this. Abraham says, okay. Sometimes Abraham says, I don't want to do that. Sometimes Jacob says, if you protect me, and if you are kind to me, and if you deliver me from my enemies, and if, then I will be your servant. It's kind of like they're checking each other out. They're dating. But something very special happens here on Mount Sinai. We receive the Torah. And this is a marriage. This is the marriage of the Jewish people to God. Period. We're dating up to this point. I'm using a euphemism. But we're checking each other out. Sometimes God gets mad, but as soon as we hit 49 days on Mount Sinai, we are locked in a covenant, and this is called an unconditional covenant. I want to explain. Nothing that we can do in this world to God, to each other, to everybody will cause God to leave us. It's called the unconditional covenant. You took the Torah, that's it. We're buddies, we're married, we got a ketubah, we're in for life. But there's a conditional covenant that if you start worshiping other gods, and you start becoming in modern day Jews for Jesus, or you start to worship Baal, or you start to worship Asherah, or all these old gods, then God's going to say, what do we say in Spanish?
Adios.
Adios, hasta la vista. Okay. Right. And you know what? I'm going to send nasty people upon you. This is what we call the Deuteronomic, the book of Deuteronomy. Now, you can believe this or you don't believe this, because the Holocaust breaks all. What could we have ever done to deserve such a thing? And what we say is that there was pre-Holocaust theology and there was post-Holocaust theology. Pre-Holocaust theology, you can say, look, the Jews in, you name the place, Iraq or Israel, they worshipped other gods, right? Who went to the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit? You'll notice that there was images of a god by the name of Asherah. Asherah is popular about 2,000 years ago, and the Jewish people said, you know what? Maybe we'll get along better with the people of the area if we have our God marry Asherah, And the two of them will have children together, and that way God's male, Asherah's woman, and they have pictures actually of this merger between Asherah and God. How do you think our God looks at this?
Askance.
God says,
Adios.
she says, who knows if God's male or female? She says, I don't need a wife, or he says, I don't need a wife. And you have now taken on other gods, and I'm going to send another nation upon you, like the Babylonians or the Persians or the Assyrians. They have no choice. I'm sending them. They're going to schmeist you, or they're going to put you into captivity. And when you smarten up, this is called the conditional covenant. Behave yourself as Jews, and the quality of your life will be excellent. And if you, as a nation, become corrupt, if you don't take care of the poor and the homeless and the person, a woman or a child without a source of income because their husband, in those days women didn't work. If you do these things, then God will leave town. And when you smarten up, and when you have been abused enough by the now I'm giving you the Deuteronomy, be good. God will be. That's the conditional covenant. It's up to you the quality of your life. And the Torah says, just when you think that God has forgotten you altogether, God will say, okay, I'm going to take you back. The way that fighting husband and wives, at the last minute say, okay, look, it wasn't worth getting into the. So the reason I'm mentioning this marriage thing is I want you to pick up your the section that I've actually. This is a very interesting thing that the Sephardic. Everybody clear what Sephardic means? If you don't, any phrases I say, there are two types of Jews. Beth, you okay on this? Sephardic and Ashkenaz?
The Spanish.
Yeah.
So, for lack of a better, Ashkenazi, Ashkenaz in Yiddish means German.
Oh.
So anybody, let's say in Poland, Russia, Eastern Europe, Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Ukraine, that kind of. Now, the Sephardim live in
the Mediterranean.
By the way, and it's also a little bit in Italy, sort of in that Mediterranean area, Spain, Portugal, Algeria, Morocco, all these other
But
places.
not the Roman Jews.
Not the Roman Jews.
Right.
No.
Roman Jews are an entity unto themselves.
Correct. Rome is a combination of both, because in a way they're kind of like southern.
They're central.
Yeah.
What about Jews who originally came from Afghanistan and those stand countries?
They tend to be Sephardic. Now there is, by the way, and I'm just going to divert for a very quick second, there is a theory, and we have a movie here about it called In Search of the 10 Lost Tribes. I would encourage you to rent it. I think we have 2 copies of it, where an archaeologist, Simcha Yakovitch, I mentioned him last week with the, he investigated the 10 plagues and saw how they were scientifically, but he went to all of the stands, and what he started to find out were people who said, we are not Jews, little pockets of people like this that said, we are Israelites, and we are descendants of, we call ourselves the Naphtalites. Anybody hear a word in there? There's a tribe that was lost. The lost tribe's called Naphtali. And he goes up to the mountain on the top of Burma, and he finds that they're the Asherites, and the Gadites, and the, I'm trying to remember the other ones. And these guys around spring take a lamb and cut the throat of the lamb and bleed it and smear blood across their, and he's actually thinks that he's located at least the remnants of the 10 lost tribes. You've seen that movie? It's on.
But I wanted to ask, what about the Jews who came from India?
The Jews that came from India are called Bnei Israel. There's a story that's told in their legend that from some of the stands there was a horrible hurricane or a bad storm that pushed a convoy of boats to, and this is the story that they tell, into India, and they settled there, and there is a sizable Jewish community in India. But in itself, it's not a tribe of Israel, but rather sort of a wandering sub-tribe of people that got lost in the storm, basically. But they're generally closer to Sephardic. Well, they're somewhere between Sephardic and Ashkenaz.
On one side of India, some of them came from Iraq by boat.
Right. Right. So, by the way, in an area of Canada where I'm from, in northern Canada, right, some of the Indians come from north, from Alaska, and some of them come up from Montana. And in the area, I wrote a book on this, that in this area, the two nations are together. And you'll see that some native people have sort of more of a round Asian face, and others have more of a narrow, darker face. So India is one of those places where the two, and Italy as well, where the two sort of, okay. So here's what happens is the Sephardim, and we have started to do this. I raise on Shavuot a marriage contract. And the Sephardim, and Marilyn, would you read this for us?
Sure.
So I want to, this is what they read, and this is a significance of Shavuot, which is more significant in the Sephardic tradition than it is in the Ashkenazi tradition. But this is a marriage contract, and I saw this at a Moroccan synagogue in Toronto. The cantor raises up this huge marriage certificate, like a ketubah, like you would have, and the wording is almost identical to a ketubah that you would have when you got married under the chuppah. So, I want to read this first?
Sure. Friday, the 6th of Sivan, the day appointed by the Lord for the revelation of the Torah to his beloved people. The Invisible One came forth from Sinai, shone from Seir, and appeared from Mount Paran unto all the kings of the earth in the year 2448 since the creation of the world. The era by which we are accustomed to reckon in this land, whose foundations were upheld by God, as it is written, for he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods.
By the way, this was written 500 years ago in Sfat. Some of you been to Sfat in your travels? Mm-hmm. This is a Kabbalistic Sephardic document, but keep going.
The bridegroom was God, ruler of rulers, prince of princes, distinguished among the select, whose mouth is pleasing, and all of whom is delightful, said unto the pious, lovely, and virtuous maiden, who are the people of Israel, who won his favor above all women, who is beautiful as the moon, radiant as the sun, awesome as bannered hosts, many days wilt thou be mine, and I will be thy redeemer. Behold, I have sent thee golden precepts through the lawgiver Jekuthiel, Moses. Be thou my mate, according to the law of Moses and Israel, and I will honor, support, and maintain thee, and be thy shelter and refuge in everlasting mercy. And I will set aside for thee, in lieu of thy virginal faithfulness, the life-giving Torah by which thou and thy children will live in health and tranquility. This bride, Israel, consented and became his spouse, and thus an eternal covenant binding them forever was established between them. The bridegroom then agreed to add to the above all future expositions of Scripture, including Sifra, Agadah, and Tosefta.
These are all the Talmuds and all the other stories that the rabbis added later on. He
established the primacy of the 248 positive commandments that are incumbent upon all.
248, according to the Talmud, corresponds with, by the way,
and added to
the number of parts in the human body. Yeah. At least that's what the Talmud says. Okay, keep going. And added to
and he added to the 248 the 365 negative commandments.
Negative, and what's the significance of 365? Days of
one of the each day of the year.
Put them together. How many do you get? Do the math.
613.
Good guess. Yeah, 613 mitzvot. Okay, it's a marriage contract, so we either cited or don't. Okay, keep going.
The dowry that this bride brought from the house of her father consists of an understanding heart that understands, ears that hearken, and eyes that see. Thus, the sum total of the contract and the dowry, with the addition of the positive and the negative commandments, amounts to the following. Revere God and observe his commandments. This applies to all mankind from Ecclesiastes. The bridegroom, desiring to confer privileges upon his people Israel,
This is God. Okay.
and to transmit these valuable assets to them, took upon himself the responsibility of this marriage contract to be paid from the best portions of his property. All these conditions are valid and established forever and ever. The bridegroom, God, has given his oath to carry them out in favor of his people, Israel, I guess, and to enable those that love him to inherit substance. Thus the Lord has given his oath. The bridegroom has followed the legal formality of symbolic delivery of this document, which is bigger than the earth and broader than the seas. Everything then is firm, clear, and established. I invoke heaven and earth as reliable witnesses. May the bridegroom rejoice with the bride whom he has taken as his lot, and may the bride rejoice with the husband of her youth while uttering words of praise.
So, you know what? Isn't that beautiful? So, you got a problem?
Do I appear to? I think I do.
Okay. Look, by the way, the reason I'm using it is the Sephardim. And by the way, I want to tell you something. That when we have services here on these 3 holidays, especially when it's a weekday, I look out. It's a challenge to get a minyan, like, when the first day of Shavuot is on Tuesday or something, because people are working. It's not intuitive to come to synagogue. And I look out, and who do I see out there? Maybe out of 14 people, 8 Persians or 8 Sephardim. The Sephardim tend to take these holidays very
serious.
First of all, it's closer to, like, Israel is closer to Iraq, to Syria, to, so it's very, very. But this is what we've started to read this. I think it's just cool. And okay, so what's your issue? You're not sure. You don't.
I'm not even sure.
Listen, you're signing a contract. You're signing a contract with God, and you want to. Like a lot of people say, look, I want to be Jewish. Right? I want to be Jewish. Look, I already signed enough contracts in my life. Look, if I want to go to synagogue, I'll go to synagogue. If I want to follow the mitzvah, I'll follow the mitzvah. This is a marriage contract. We review it every single year in the Sephardic tradition, and everybody says, and by the way, on Friday nights we go, Ve'imeru kol ha'am amen, and Ve'imeru, and the entire nation, the Imaru said, Ha'am, the nation, and the entire nation said, Amen, we concur. Okay? And the rabbi says, good, we're good for another year. And this is what Shavuot is actually. It's an important holiday. You're sighing. So what? Articulate what you're feeling.
Well, it's a lot to kind of take in because it's not something that you can put your finger on. It's not concrete.
Listen, I'm going to guess for a second. This is a major commitment. This says that Judaism is not an option or how we're feeling on a given day, or do we like the rabbi or the congregation? Maybe I'll only go 5 times a year as opposed to every week. Or this is it. It's you and God, and you're accountable. All right. All I'm saying is that this is the covenant. It's the unconditional covenant.
Well, this may be why many people say they are Jewish and commit to Judaism and yet do nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't support a temple.
Okay,
they don't come to shul.
I'm gonna say to you that I think that it's the job, and this is a whole other topic. It's the job of a congregation, and it's the job of the rabbi to create a place that espouses these principles. Now, I want to tell you just before we go on that there is a variation of this contract that a conservative rabbi wrote a couple of years ago. We promise God that we will develop a synagogue that is caring to everybody, that someone who is alone will never feel alone, that we will commit to social causes, that we will raise money for the poor, that a stranger who comes in through our door will never feel lonely, and they will be embraced from... And there's actually been variations of this contract that we actually, and I read on Shavuot the second copy of it, which says that we commit that we're going to create a synagogue that God wants to live and to dwell in. So we take this, but this is this is a 500-year-old document that says it's marriage. And by the way, if you ever want to get scared, read your ketubah, because as women you are acquired by your husband. The husband can do whatever the husband wants, but the woman gives up. What does it say? Virginal. What's this, all this virgin talk in here? Right. It basically says that the woman gives up all of her romantic options. She never was with anybody before, and now she's only going to be with God. But the male is allowed to do whatever. That's actually what the ketubah that you actually sign. In return, don't read your ketubah. So, hang on. And in return, by the way, the husband has to give clothing, support, shelter, and what we will term as comfort. The husband has to give comfort. And the Talmud, I'm off here, but the Talmud lists a schedule of, according to your profession, how much, and if you're a sailor, you have to come home twice a year to provide these things. So this is a marriage contract, a ketubah that we sign. Okay, so Mount Sinai is the time that we receive the Torah from God and changes everything, and now we're locked together. Two covenants. The unconditional covenant. You got no choice. We agree as a Jewish people, you do these things. How many mitzvot?
613.
Positive ones. Those are easy. That's easier. 365. And minus 613 minus 360, 248. According to the now I've had doctors start counting parts, and we have more parts than 248. But if the rabbis say that's how many parts that we have, they're basically trying to they're doing a few creative mathematics. Okay.
What are the negative? Give me an example of a negative commandment. Thou shalt not. Are those considered the negative ones?
Yep. Give me some knots.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not. That's easy ones.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Okay, we're into the top 10. Okay, we're into the top 10. Okay, give me some of that are not top 10. You shall not turn your face when the blood of your countrymen is being shed. Right? You let's see. A man, and please excuse my graphic, in Leviticus, a man should not lie down with his, and fill in the blank. Right? Because in those days, a man was everything. A man could lie down with anybody who the man wanted to. He was the CEO of the company. There was no Supreme Court. There were no state police. There was no... What's that? There's no Secret Service. Very good. Okay.
We won't have one either pretty soon.
That's right.
So thou shalt not lie down with a minor. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's there. It's there. It's there for a reason, because if the police say don't, you have to stop at the stop sign. If everybody's stopping at the stop sign, you don't have to have a law. But because of the fact that people go through stop signs, we have to have a law that says don't do that.
So where would we find all the other?
You want the 240?
No, I want the negatives. Where would I find those negatives?
You go online.
I
I have printed them, and at one point, thou shalt not. And it's pages and pages and pages, but 245. Now, by the way, about a third or a half of those are in the temple, you shall, when you sacrifice an animal, not cut this part, but you should cut the kishkas from this one. So a lot of it has to do with sacrificial stuff. But in general, don't turn a blind eye to injustice. Do not deprive, and it says here, the widow or the stranger, do not take their garment as security for a loan, or at least give it back to them at the end of the day so that they have something to keep them. Don't take away their blanket, basically. These are negative. Some of them are negative. Don't kill, don't. And other of them are don't take away someone's dignity. That's a negative commandment. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. I mean, I'm going to tell you what I think that means. I mean, when someone says, "Oh my God," or "Gee damn it," or whatever, I don't look at that, or something worse. I don't look at that as being using the Lord's name in vain, because I hear kids all the time, "OMG," "Oh my God," "Oh my God," "Oh my God." If that would be the case, we'd have sins going up to what I consider that to be is, Dana, I was there on Friday at 5 o'clock. I swear to God I was there. And you say, "Oh, you swear to God," the discussion's over, right? Because the rabbi's talking to God. When he says God, the discussion's over. And so you don't use God as the deal breaker, as the reference, as the argument breaker, so that's why we're encouraged never to. Okay, so and 365 positives. Let's do some positives.
No, the 365.
Sorry, 248. Sorry, 248 negative. Just
Honor the parents.
Okay, get on the top 10 for a second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, I mean it's easy. The top 10 are top 10 because they're top 10. So let's go into the other one. What's that?
Help others.
Right. Eat matzah. No, but
No, sorry.
okay, it's there. We're not making comments. Eat matzah, right? Tell the story of Passover to your children, right? Honor.
Your mother and father. That's the.
No, top 10 is fine. I mean, look, keep mentioning the top 10, but you run out of them after 5, so or 5 or 6. What are some of the other ones?
Well, you always say be kind and good to others.
Okay, honor your neighbor. What is it?
Be kind to animals.
Be kind to. Yes, I think be
It's
kind.
in there, yeah.
Right. By the way, it says officially what it says is, "Thou shalt not pull the limb off of a live animal."
Oh, great.
Now, before the 10 Commandments. By the way, the 10. Okay, different new point. Okay, this takes place 3,488 years ago. This year.
Wow.
Okay,
What took place?
the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai.
Oh.
49 years. The Jewish New Year, right, is Passover. Remember that? Or the first of the month. It takes 49 days, and we get to Shavuot. We receive 2 Torahs. Review the 2 Torahs. Moshe Kibel Torah. We have the written Torah, right? The written Torah, right? Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Honor your mother and your father. And the unwritten Torah, I just said it. The unwritten Torah is all of the ethical values that you as parents and grandparents send down to your children.
I have a question.
See.
The 3,488 was when we received the Torah?
Correct.
But I also thought that it was
And the
on
Exodus.
the Mount Sinai that we got the 10 Commandments.
Right?
Was it at the same time?
Yes.
It was at the same time?
Yeah. God gives the 10 Commandments, like Moses comes down,
Yeah.
right? Sees the people dancing around with the golden calf, gets mad, breaks them, goes back up again, and creates and gets some new ones, and comes down again. But all this happens, and somebody calculated 3,488 from today, from this, and that's because after 49 days of leaving, that's where it is. So what are we at? Take away 2012. Am I doing this right? 1,476 BCE. Right? BCE. Before Common Era. BC. If you want to, I don't like using that phrase. Okay. Now, before this happens, during the time of Noah, is Noah Jewish? Going to take a vote. Is Noah Jewish? No. Thank you. Good answer. Okay. Who's the first Jew? Abraham. Noah has some children. and one of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, one of them is Abraham. But Noah himself is not Jewish. After the flood happens, and God says, okay, Noah, you and she's not mentioned by name, you and Mrs. Noah, it says Noah ve'ishto, Noah and his wife, Noah and Mrs. Noah, you will be the new Adam and Eve. I'm giving you 7 new commandments. And these commandments are commandments for all humanity. Later on, approximately how many years later, Jews get their own 10. Non-Jews, technically speaking, are not responsible for the 10 commandments, but they're responsible for the 7. And they basically are: don't murder, don't steal, set up systems of judiciary, set up a court system, and one of them is, and do not tear off the limb off of a living animal. Why? Because people were doing it. Why would you, we don't have look, if you are living 30 X hundred years ago, and you didn't have refrigeration and you had a goat, please excuse my graphic, but all you had to do is remove the animal's ability to scream and to protest, send it over there with your shepherd boy over there and bring me a steak every night, or bring me a leg of lamb. I'm sorry, but that's just the way that now. So it doesn't say be kind to animals, but I think it does. Right? The commandment says do not. This is where we take a principle, and the rabbis, that's why we have the Talmud. The rabbis say, Rabbi, is it say anywhere that you have to be kind to animals? The rabbi says, not in so many words, but I'm sure that when God says do not tear a limb off of a living animal, that animal rights come first. And that if you want kosher meat on your table, if you want kosher meat on your table, and the animal is treated, and this is now Torah according to Rabbi Irwin. This is not always official.
Right.
A lot of Orthodox, they say, who cares how it got to your table? And I'm just going to go here very briefly, that there were a few years ago, there was a very unethical kosher meat producer that polluted the environment, that was unfair to workers, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing. But a lot of people, including myself, will not buy from that particular, and it was the biggest kosher supplier for a while at all. Because I go back to the idea that an animal cannot be kosher if it gets to your table through the abuse of, that's my sermon from Saturday, from the abuse of workers, the environment, or the animals themselves. That's I'm the rabbi here, so that's why veal, goose liver, etc. is not kosher. Okay, so here we are. So we have now the 7 commandments of Noah. We'll do this another time, and the 10 commandments at Mount Sinai. And we're marching 49 days to Mount Sinai.
But I remember somebody said that the 10 Commandments, 5 were really for someone above for...
There are some that are positive. There's some between man and...
That's it.
God and God. Between man and God, or humankind. Right. And the other are... So what are the ones between humankind and God? Thou shalt have no other gods but me. I am the Lord your God. Honor the Shabbat. Who's that between?
God and
I guess us and God, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed, because I don't have to honor you by celebrating the Shabbat. And then the bridge is honor your mother and your father, because it's kind of like halfway between honoring God who created all of this and humanity. And then we move to don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't kill, don't covet your neighbor's.
But why would God give us those? Why wouldn't He just give us the 10 for Him? Not to make an ethical world.
Make an ethical world. God says
that has to come from you.
In numerous scriptures, it is said, God says, I don't need you to worship me. Take care of the other person first. Abraham, if you remember, God comes and visits Abraham. Abraham says, excuse me, God, I got to go. God, if God came and visited my house, I assure you that I would not go and check the mail or look who's at my front door. Abraham says there's people in the desert who are hungry and thirsty, and I don't know what their story is. God, have a nice day, but I'm going to go see thee. And God laughs and says, you're right. I'd rather you be, I don't need your sacrifices. I don't need your, okay. So we have something called the counting of the Omer. If you would go to the next page. You'll see Bart Simpson. If you want a little laugh, there's the counting of the Homer. If you want to go online, the Simpsons have actually put out the counting of the Homer according to Homer Simpson. They call it they say the counting of the Homer. And you'll see there's Bart Simpson saying, I will, what does it say here? I can't read it that well. I will remember to count the Omer. There's a cartoon here, right? On the next page. Little picture. Little picture here. All right. Now, what we're doing right now, we're in a period working our way up to the counting of the Omer. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to actually go through these holidays and fill in the blanks for many of you on some of these important traditions. The tradition is that there is an important space between Passover and Shavuot, and we're supposed to prepare ourselves for the receipt of the Torah on Mount Sinai. I'm just giving you the tradition. This is what it is. How do we do that? Every night we count the Omer. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go one, and the next night two, it doesn't actually get me all excited about receiving the Torah. So, who are our resident, whenever things appear to be boring in Judaism, who can we count on? Yeah. Who can we count on? Who can we, besides your rabbi, who can we count on? Which group to give a little bit of extra spirituality in? There's a group of people, right? The Kabbalists, right? The mystics, right? So what they say, and what I want you to do is go to page where it says Your Guide to Personal Freedom. And I'm going to read this out loud, and I'll help you if you're...
That's the page in back.
It's the second to last page, I think it is. So what they say is...
I can't read it.
Okay, well, I'll read it. Rose will read it a little bit for you. But I'm actually not even asking you to read it. I want to show you what they did. We're going to do Kabbalah. We're going to do Kabbalah, which is mysticism, in another session. The reason that you don't know Kabbalah is up to 30 or 40 years ago, only men over 40 with children were allowed to study Kabbalah. Okay? This is Orthodox tradition. Because you have to have a certain maturity about you, and of course everybody knows that women can't handle the study of Talmud or so what's been happening is in the last 3 or 4 decades there has been a tremendous push to empower women and to empower all people, the orange on the Seder plate basically, that and basically Kabbalah, and I'm really not going to get into it very heavily, but what it says is that God has 10 different characteristics. Probably doing this wrong. It's probably more than... And if you notice, it almost looks like a body. And, for example, what happens on... I'm going to give you a very quick Kabbalah lesson here. What happens on Rosh Hashanah when we're standing there and we're praying? What can we say about... What do we hope that God...
Forgives us.
Well, okay, so...
We hope He hears us.
Why are we scared in the first place? Supposedly we're supposed to be scared, or we're supposed to be concerned. Why? What's that attribute of God?
Wrath.
Judgment. Right. So we want. So it's Yom Hadin. So we call that Dina. But you know what? Life's a balance, and we want God to be tempered by Chesed, or
mercy.
Which is mercy, loving kindness. So in Kabbalah, we basically are constantly looking at God's anger, but temper it with some mercy. On one hand, we're looking at creativity, but on the other hand, we're looking at logic. So this is a whole blueprint of splitting God. I don't want to do this right now, but it's splitting God into 10 different, and that's the essence of Kabbalah. That's why Madonna and Britney Spears and whoever it is, they like it's the new hot religion, because it divides God into 10 different attributes. look on your list and look see what the Kabbalists do.
Chesed, Gevurah,
Very good. You see on the bottom?
Tiferet.
These are the. I'm doing a lot. Where is it? Go to the third last page.
Page what is it?
Yeah.
Page 1 of 4, you go into personal freedom.
Right. Notice the small print, and I'll read this for you, Rose, so that you can.
Can we stop?
Yeah.
What is Omer? What does it mean?
Omer is just the offering. It's 49 days.
What we're offering?
Yeah, it's 49 days of our offering as we work our way towards
Towards marriage?
towards the receipt of the Torah on Mount Sinai and our marriage. Now, in the Orthodox or Sephardic, and our renewal of our marriage vows with God for another year.
Why is it at that time? So, because that's the Exodus when we were let free?
So let's take two directions. First, why is it that time?
Right.
Because according to the Torah, that's when it happened.
Okay.
If you don't believe that the Torah is literal and that it was written down later, 7 times 7 would be a good time. And also Shavuot was also looked at as a time to pray for a good summer harvest and summer wheat and whatever. Later on, it took on more, just like Passover has taken on less of a harvest and more of a freedom thing. So Omer, all it is. Now I'm giving the official version. What I wanted to actually do today, just by discussing Shavuot, is just to put it on your radar screen. That it seems to be a holiday that we all ignore, that it doesn't have a sukkah or matzah or anything attached to it, but in many ways, just in a spiritual way, it is the reinforcement of our commitment as Jewish people to Torah. This is the time of the year that we officially do that. And I want to just...
That's probably why they have the Israeli Day of Independence.
I don't know.
To celebrate, because you said to celebrate the land of milk and honey.
Could be. Well, actually, but Israel was put into place May 6th, I believe it is, 1948. That's when they figured that was the right time to do it before the Arabs attacked. So I don't know why they put it there because that's when it was there. But let me read the 7 emotional attributes. Chesed, loving kindness. Gevurah, justice and discipline. Tiferet, by the way, guess what? Guess what? And you know what? Why I like being here? What's my Hebrew name?
Irwin.
What's my Hebrew name?
Isaiah.
Israel. So Tiferet Israel, I feel like I'm in a place personally of compassion. This is why I love, one of the reasons why when they said, would you like to consider a job here? I said, well, it sort of has my name in somewhere.
My name is written all over it.
No, but I feel like it's like a message to me, like,
A sign.
Irwin, honor the compassion here. That's sort of it's just my own little personal shtick. So Tiferet means harmony or compassion. Netzach, endurance. Hod, humility. Yesod, bonding. And Malchut, sovereignty and leadership. These are the seven major characteristics of God. And there's a few other ones which only Moshe. Anyway, I don't want to get into. So look what they do in the Kabbalistic day 1. Notice on 2 of 4. If I'm going to, this is boring. Let me know. But this is how the Kabbalists would look at the 49 days. Every day they wake up and they say, for the first 7 days, we're going to focus on Chesed, on loving kindness. Now here's where you get a headache. You'll notice that the first day there's the Chesed of Chesed, which is loving kindness and loving kindness, and there are meditations on how to focus on your loving kindness. Day 2. The Gevurah of Chesed. You see, it's like they're almost like doing a grid. They're cross-referencing. So how can we have the discipline of loving kindness? And you notice that the exercise for the day, notice the little print?
Yes.
Help someone on their terms, not on yours. Apply yourself to their specific needs, even if it takes effort. And then on day 3, isn't it amazing? Tiferet of Chesed, compassion, harmony, and loving kindness. Your exercise for the day, offer a helping hand to a stranger. Netzach of Chesed. Netzach is endurance, exercise for the day. Reassure a loved one of the constancy of your love. Isn't this beautiful?
Yes.
Yeah. The Hod of Chesed, humility of loving kindness. I'm reading this Exercise of the day. Swallow your pride and reconcile with a loved one with whom you have quarreled. Okay, well,
That's a powerful one.
Sure it is.
They all are.
Yesod of chesed, bonding in loving kindness. Start building something constructive together with a loved one. And finally, your project for the first week is malchut of chesed, nobility of loving kindness. And they suggest, highlight an aspect of your love which has bolstered your spirit and enriched your life, and celebrate it. So you can imagine if you're a Kabbalist, and then so we've now run through chesed. And if I was to print the other 7 pages for the 49 days, the next on the list would be justice and discipline, and then they would cross-reference. Now, I'm not asking you to do this, but you know what? I do know somebody that actually did this one year. And I want to tell you something. By the time she did one little exercise every day after 49 days, she just walked into Shavuot and said, wow, I'm ready to accept the Torah. I'm ready to accept loving kindness and compassion. I've done my homework. So, I have an idea that maybe next year after Passover that I'm going to send out an email once a day.
This would be great.
Yeah,
And for the Hebrew school.
And for the Hebrew school, right?
I think Chabad has one that gets sent out daily during that whole...
Does it? Chabad does?
I think
Right,
so.
right. So this is lovely. This is a Kabbalistic... Now, I'm not sure how many attributes God has. I'm not sure. But imagine taking like the 7 and cross-referencing them against each other and doing something every day leading up to
Well,
41.
even just discussing, finding new ways to express your love could take a whole session.
Exactly.
But in a way, shouldn't we be doing this anyway?
Yes, of course.
We should be saying, God, I want to be better every day. We should be promoting freedom. We should be taking care of, but you know what? If we don't say it's Passover, Beth,
Yes.
it's time to look after sleep. You should be doing that every day, but you know what?
Try.
Well, you try. I do too.
I try.
But every now and then we have to shine the flashlight on forgiveness, on receiving of the Torah, and so this is what I wanted to basically introduce the topic of Shavuot. In another lifetime, I'm going to be the public relations director for Shavuot, but I think that it doesn't have something that sexy. But when you actually look into it a little bit deeper, it is the actual reconciling. It is the saying, I want to be Jewish for another year. And this is what I'm going to do from the time that I was given my freedom to the time that I'm going to be given this document, so I can stand up when the rabbi in Sephardic synagogue and here lifts up the ketubah and says, "Are we signing this year?" And everybody says, "Ve'emeru kol ha'am, amen." So we say, "Amen, ditto, I'm in." That's the beauty that I love about Shavuot, and it doesn't get enough. It doesn't get enough press, and it doesn't get enough. So if anybody's, I may still consider on the 15th or 16th day starting to. I've thought about when I was preparing this of sending out an email every single day, but it only makes sense for me if I do it right from the beginning. And what we're doing this year, we're having a meeting tomorrow of our ritual people, and we're going to say, for example, on May the 10th, Rabbi, start thinking about what you're going to do for Shavuot this year. That way we're just not sort of just walking into it cold every year, that we learn from some of the ideas that we had in past years. What I wanted to do, what time is it, by the way?
11:30.
Okay. So here's what I'd like to, what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about your bar and bat mitzvahs, and this is something that, now, by the way, if you want me to be handling these classes a little bit differently, then you need to tell me. But when there's a holiday coming up, we just happen to have 2 holidays, Passover and Shavuot, and I want to actually expand your understanding of why Judaism and why these holidays have endured. Otherwise, I'm going to be sitting here by myself on Shavuot with 8 people and saying, why didn't I explain it better? And you know what? When people understand it better and they don't come, I'm actually okay with that. As a rabbi, I always say to myself, did I explain it well enough? It's like kosher. I'll explain it. And if people say, I don't buy it, then don't But my job is to explain.
When does Shavuot fall this year?
Friday night on May the 26th, extends through Shabbat, so you'll be here for Shabbat, for the first day of Shavuot. And then Sunday it comes up as the second day. And I just got off the phone with Rabbi Karp, Molly Karp, and she's going to be joining us on that day for a lunch and learn on the book of Ruth.
That's
Oh,
Memorial
that's
Day
awesome.
weekend.
That's Memorial Day weekend. So I have a choice. Either we're going to cancel Memorial Day or cancel Shavuot. So I'm going to be here for Shavuot. So, and for those people that want to come and celebrate, and what I'm going to try to do more and more is on the second day of these holidays to bring in speakers, so it's a little bit less boring, because people don't these days just go and say it's Shavuot, I'm going to synagogue, I'm going to sit there and be bored for a couple hours. I said that for you. So Dana is my boring police, so I always make sure. Okay, so here's what I want to ask you. As we proceed to next year, and as we get as we reconvene, and do you want to continue during the summer? Is that because I'm around, and I'm just going to be talking about different ethics.
Sundays aren't great
Sundays
for in the sun.
Let's see how you're feeling.
Yeah, I'm here.
But I need you to actually I need you to actually think about whether you want to do a bat mitzvah as a group, or you want to do them individually, or you want to do them as twos or threes. I think, Rose, it makes sense for you to do yours alone on your 100th birthday in October.
You get the whole service.
You get the whole service. And if you want to take, for example, a partner and maybe do a double, or we may do 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, which was the case at this congregation. But here's what it really entails: saying a blessing over the Torah. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. Thank you for making me part of this unique group of people that has all these really interesting ethical principles. And to say a few words on why Judaism is important to you, and how you raise in your life, and how you raise and influence your family. That's the core of what this is. Anything you want to do after that, read some more Torah, lead some prayers, whatever it is that you want to do, that's for you to do. And the cantor and I will set up separate times if you want to lead the Shema, if you want to lead the Ahashrei, Yoshvei, whatever you want to do in addition. So you have to think for yourself whether you want to do it as part. I'm sure there'll be a class at the end of 8 or 9 people that will want, or 10, whatever, that will have a morning service, and everybody will take one prayer, and everybody will be called individually to the Torah. And some of you may want to do this on your own, or with a partner, with a second. We'll be like a big shul where they have 2 bar mitzvahs every Saturday. So I want you. I'm not asking you for that yet, but I want you to think about it. It may be fun just to have a partner and do it together and pick a date, or do it yourself, or be part of the larger group. I'm going to leave that very much up to you.
When are you saying we would get our about
We're thinking after the Yom Tovim, after Sukkot and I think the floor is open in mid-October to November, right through into 2013, depending on what people's schedules were like. We're gonna continue doing this class up until probably around January or something. I'm gonna continue to do this, because also when we begin Genesis again, there's lots of very, very important things about who we are and where we come from, like animal rights, like hospitality, all that other stuff. So.
No, I'm thinking about,
For me personally, this journey is about learning things that I don't know the Alini by heart, I don't know the Amidah by heart, I don't know the Dor Vador by heart.
Right.
And I don't know the Ashrei by heart. So, for me it's about learning those prayers first. because I want to be able to be fully committed and fully present to what, that's what becoming a bat mitzvah is for me. It's knowing the service and.
Okay, so here's how this is going to go. In about 3 weeks, we will be finished with the kids for the year for Limud. And the cantor will play a little bit more of a role in teaching the prayers.
Okay, that's fine. Is there some way to get a transliteration of each of those things so that I
Sure.
can, it would be nice to, I was at a bat mitzvah yesterday and I was trying to follow along with the Hebrew, and I've taken a few Hebrew classes, but for me, part of my learning process would be helpful for me to have transliteration so that I could memorize it.
Good.
Would you say that you're supposed to know those prayers by heart? Instead of standing with the book and reading it?
I go to this. Say the let me just say this. Look, I'm working with a child right now who's autistic, and he's obsessed with The Simpsons and Harry Potter, and we're developing.
You should watch Saturday Night Live last night.
Really? Oh, okay. And all it really is the saying the blessings over the Torah and the speech. Now, what we may want to do, Dana, is develop maybe a 10 prayer book of the Shema, the Ashrei, the Amidah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, like maybe 5 or 6 prayers, and then all of you, let's learn these together, either in Hebrew or in transliteration. So at the end of the day, everybody has a core of a half a dozen prayers that they know. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, and so much of what you do with Limud in the morning on the screen, it's there. And I find some of the stuff for me that I've actually learned it coming to the Limud service.
So thank you for that. So I think what we'll do is we can turn the screen, for example, around and go through our own morning service of 3 or 4 prayers that we would repeat, and then we would go into the teaching for that week. Would that work with everybody?
Yeah, and it's there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
It's there in transliteration, and it's there in Hebrew and the tune, and it's there in English.
Right.
So
And
the visual is
and
tremendous.
Hebrew classes. If anybody wants to go into actual Hebrew, then please let me know. Okay, and what we will do is, now I want to just let you know that next year we will likely, we're still working on how we're going to finance this whole thing, but Eve Eichenholz, we will have a student, there's a young lady from, she was here one Shabbat. She's from Roslyn Harbor, and she's graduating from my yeshiva at 29 this time next year. And she needs a place to be an intern. So she's going to be taking Marielle, one of our teachers who will be in Israel next year. She'll be taking her place. And if I can just get a few extra $1,000 into my discretionary fund, then we're going to top her up and make her our sort of our student rabbi for the children, and also a Hebrew teacher for you guys. That's sort of where I'm trying to go on this. So just leave that with me on the Hebrew for now. Hebrew is very, very hard. On one hand, it's look.
It's not so bad.
She will kill me. She will kill me if she knows that I said this. But Patty has tried to take a half a dozen courses. If she really, like most of you, really grinds at it, she can figure out what's going on. But as far as following the cantor, or following, it's murder. It's very, very
How
hard.
did you learn it to become fluent? I mean, how did you do
When I
that?
was a child.
Well, you learn it as a-
Yeah,
you learn it as a-
Yeah, number one, really, when you learn it as a child. Now, I can't read Hebrew, but I can follow. But I started at age 4, and as a child...
But how can you say that you're not reading if you're following?
I follow. I cannot speak it, but I can follow wherever anyone is.
Does that mean you can read it?
I can.
I can pick it up. I mean,
Probably if it was being read slower, she could follow and read
and
it.
the other part of it is I never learned what it meant. So the words have no meaning to me.
Right.
No meaning at all. It just means that I can read it.
But-
I can read French and I can read Spanish
So
too.
you know,
Right, I don't know what
you know how I roll. if we put a prayer on the wall, I guarantee you that I will tell you where it comes from, who wrote it, and why. And I will apologize in advance if it takes me 25 minutes to explain what the Ashrei is. Because we say it every Ashrei, Ashrei. Okay, what is it? What is it?
A lot of it I've learned just from hearing it. I mean.
Okay, so it's a song. It's okay.
When it's in song.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sorry.
that's sort of.
Yeah.
The children in the Hebrew school here, when they get a bar bat mitzvah, have they learned to read the Hebrew in the prayer book? Yeah, they say the prayers.
Most have, and some have trouble with it. We're still at a stage where we've taken in a lot of families who do not have a Jewish background, and we're trying to catch up. By the way, our Hebrew program here is that we have individual attention for every child where they happen to be at that particular time. But I don't define a bar mitzvah of a child being able to rattle off a 24/7 Haftorah and then never have to look at it again, and because that's not working for us as Jewish people. We
Starts at home.
no, I'm just telling you that's me. That's my rabbinate. We've had many people here who have gone up and rattled off 24 sentences, and we never hear from them again. And their bar mitzvah gifts stay up on the bima, and I have to call them to come get it. And we never, the joke about the priest goes to the rabbi, how do I get rid of my rats? And the rabbi says, in the rats in the belfry, and the rabbi says, bar mitzvah, then you'll never hear from them again. So. Sorry, that's an old joke. So what we're trying to do is instill more Jewish values and the ability to read Hebrew to make sure that they come back the following week.
And I think what you're doing with, it's not really so much, that's what I was trying to say, is reading the Hebrew, as understanding what it's about. Because it has no meaning.
Let me do Ashrei and we'll stop. So 2 things I want you to do. Think about how you want to proceed with your own bat mitzvah, and also when that would be appropriate for you to do. I will put together a let's just say a 5-prayer, 6-prayer mini sidur, and we will start to put that up. If it's not now next week, by the way, we are going to not meet because we're going to be over at North Country celebrating Israel independence.
9:45 promptly.
9:45.
So in other words, next Sunday we're not meeting.
Next Sunday we're at North Country.
Yeah, we're North Country. I would encourage people to go and celebrate Israel, which is part of what we're doing here anyways.
Right. What time is that on Sunday?
9:45 at North Country.
At North Country.
Oh, no problem.
Their kids are going to sing. Our kids are going to sing. What's that?
Singing.
What do they do?
The kids are going to sing. The rabbis are going to speak. The cantors are going to sing.
So it's a service?
It'll be a brief service that we want to keep the kids' attention.
Is it outdoor?
You know what? I'm meeting with Rabbi Liss on Tuesday. We'll figure out.
They're also going to do a little bit of an Israel picture show from their trip and our trip.
Right. Let me close with this. The Ashrei, there are 150 psalms and these were basically poems that either King David or attributed to King David. There are some of them that are happy songs. Happy is the man who rejoices in God. Ashrei.
What does the word itself mean?
Ashrei means rich.
Ashrei means rich.
Ashir means rich. Somebody who's Ashir. The name of that god that the stragglers wanted to marry with our god was Ashira.
Well,
Right.
she was the goddess of fertility, I thought.
Hebrew is the reason Hebrew is so difficult is that somebody sent me an email and said, I read that you wrote in your update this week that somebody's neshama. Everybody heard that word? That's a nice neshama. It's a nice spirit. So I said it's their inner force. And someone said, well, I looked it up in the dictionary and it means soul. So now English is a very specific language. What you say is what you mean. Hebrew is very like the word shamor. Shamor can be guardian, look after. Like every word has 10 different meanings, so you always have to look at the context. So Ashrei. Now here's the reason why Ashrei is very popular. Hang on. Bechol yamar v'cheka v'ala shimcha li'olam va'ed gadol Adonai mulam me'od v'lidu ato and teker door ledor aleph beit gimel dalet. Every it's called an acrostic. Every letter every sentence begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet going up to the last. Why? Because they didn't have